Hello everyone and welcome. These past few days I've been thinking a lot about hope, how much I need it, and I feel like many of you might need it too. With so much turmoil in the world, it's very easy to feel powerless. Yet hope to me is a little like the sun. Even on the cloudiest, darkest days, we know it is still there behind the clouds, quietly sustaining life. Today, I wanted to spend some time reconnecting with the feeling of hope through sketching these 3 little scenes that have been speaking to my heart lately. In this session, we'll be sketching 3 small thumbnails inspired by these moments. You're very welcome to simply sit back, relax, and watch them unfold with all their little ups and downs. And if you'd like to paint along with me, I'll be explaining my process and the colors I'm using as we go along, so you can follow at your own pace. All of my supplies are listed in the video description, and the reference photos are available there and in the channel post. Please feel free to ask me any questions or simply write to say hello. I'm always so incredibly happy to hear from you. Let's begin and let these tiny paintings become quiet reminders of the hope and love we already carry inside us. These days, everything seems to move so fast. With all the daily errands and responsibilities, I often feel like I can't find a steady, predictable time to paint. When I do sit down, my sketching time feels sporadic and a bit unpredictable. Sometimes I even worry that I'm losing my drawing skills, and yet, when I finally sit at my table and just begin, I can feel myself slowly warming up to it again. Recently, I visited our local art store, and they suggested a book to me called Keys to Drawing by Bert Dodson. It's an older classic, and so many of the techniques in it feel very close to how I naturally like to approach drawing. The book focuses on really learning to see, noticing shapes, edges, proportions, light and shadow, and using simple exercises to train your eye and hand to work together more confidently. If you are looking to develop your drawing skills, you can use this book almost like a gentle drawing course at home. You don't need long, perfect sessions. You can just pick one small exercise, spend a few minutes with it, and keep returning to it whenever you can. Now that I've loosely sketched the poppy flowers in pencil, let's start bringing them to life with watercolors. I first like to pre-wet my paints by adding a few drops of clean water into each pen and letting them sit for a while before I start using them. If you've noticed already, I'm using a new floral paint set by Schmincke today. I picked up this little tin in Belgium last summer, and it's been patiently waiting for its moment. I finally found the perfect use for it, so let's explore these colors together and see how they perform. Let's review what we have done so far. We pre-wetted the sky area and dropped in cobalt blue light, wet into wet. Then I started laying in an underwash over the areas where we'll have leaves, stems and other flowers. I chose this color because it's very transparent, so it won't interfere with the layers we'll add later. Notice how I brushed it loosely through the middle and foreground, but carefully avoided the poppy shapes. I want the poppies to keep a clear, bright red at this time, so I went in next with ruby red on the flower shapes. My room is pretty dry and warm right now, so the paper is drying quite fast, and I didn't have to wait long before adding the next layer to start defining the petals. As some of you may know, I like my shapes to stay free and flowing. I was drawn to this particular poppy because of its gentle movement in the breeze that day. It felt like it was just about ready to shed its petals and make room for the younger poppy buds to emerge. We are now moving into painting the shapes surrounding the flowers. You'll see me mostly suggesting rather than outlining the stems of the poppies, the poppy buds and the little flowers that weave around them. Some of you might even start to recognize hints of purple and yellow pansies in there. For this stage, I'm working primarily with Hooker's green and then nudging it warmer or cooler by mixing in reds and blues, depending on the temperature and value I want to create. You might be looking at this and thinking it feels a bit chaotic or hard to read. And that's exactly how it often feels to me at this stage too. Things are loose and undefined, and I don't always see clearly where it's all going. There were many times in the past when I would give up here, leaving pieces half finished because I didn't trust myself or couldn't imagine how they could possibly come together. And what helps me now is leaning into hope. Hope that if I stay with the process, keep listening, keep adjusting, something will gradually emerge. Over the years, I've been learning to trust my own skills and intuition a little more, and to be a kinder companion to myself while I paint. Instead of being my harshest critic, I try to hold on to the quiet belief that it's okay for things to look messy and unresolved for a while. Here you see me adding darker values to the flower petals to give them more shape and depth. I'm also using negative painting technique, working around the stems and poppy buds, and in some areas even painting around that little prickly fuzz that covers the stems and buds. For this stage, I'm mostly working wet and dry, which gives me a bit more control when I want to define and refine the shapes. As I'm sketching the foreground and middle ground, you can see me slowly filling the space with more flowers. I'm simply suggesting the poppy stems here, the little buds and some of the surrounding blooms. Some of you might even start to recognize hints of purple and yellow pansies here and there. I'm mostly working with Hooker's green and then gently nudging it warmer or cooler with reds and blues, depending on the temperature and value I want in each area. At this stage, the painting can feel a bit wild and confusing, almost like a tangle of color and marks, where it's hard to pick out specific shapes. If it looks chaotic to you, that's completely normal. It feels that way for me too. The thoughts of abandoning this work cross my mind a lot at this stage, but this is also where hope becomes part of my practice. I also love flowers because for me they're like little messengers of hope. I look at them and see how they grow quietly through the dark soil, and then, without drama, they just bloom when it's time. Nature has its own steady rhythm. Seasons return, buds open, petals fall, and then somehow there is new growth again. Remembering this helps calm me down and brings me back to trust. Even if I can't see the outcome yet, something is unfolding. Now let's talk a little bit about the supplies I'm using today and how I like to think about them. Over the years, I've tried and collected many different art supplies, and I really enjoy rotating them. This time I finally decided to unbox the floral set I bought in Antwerp last summer. It felt like perfect moment to try it out. Everything is blooming here in the area, and I feel so drawn to paint flowers, all kinds of flowers. This set has a few basic primaries and then some colors that are newer to me, like helio green and pearland green. You might notice that I'm a bit hesitant with those in this sketch. I'm still slowly getting to know their personality and how they behave in mixes. Others, though, I'm already really enjoying. Ruby red and permanent yellow are definitely my favorites in this palette so far. The same as for my sketchbook. I've just tried a new one and I purchased it in Belgium last summer as well. This is my first time working on this 140-pound cold press sketchbook by Lana, and I'm really enjoying the feel of this paper. I'm looking forward to filling many more pages here together with you. And for brushes, I'm using my longtime favorites, an all-purpose calligraphy brush by Yasutomo, a couple of small rounds, and a size 4 liner for those delicate lines and details. Dear friends, I welcome you to use whatever supplies you have on hand right now. You don't need this exact set to follow along. If you ever wonder how you might substitute some of the colors or paper with what you already own, please feel free to ask me and I'll be happy to help. These tiny sketches are especially helpful when you're learning because they're small and very manageable. You can experiment with new techniques and color combinations in your sketchbook without putting a lot of pressure on yourself. And if something doesn't quite work, you can simply turn the page and try again. There's really nothing to lose when it comes to watercolor sketching. When we sketch with love and with hope in our hearts, even these small studies can become deeply meaningful and very inspiring to us. We are now just adding a few small finishing touches, gently defining the white flowers in the background by dropping in some soft shadows. And before I move on to the second thumbnail where we'll sketch a beautiful magnolia tree, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart for supporting my work and this little watercolor community of ours. I feel truly blessed and very happy to have you in my life, and deeply honored to be a small part of yours as well. Thank you so much for being here with me. Dear friends, you just saw me sketch the magnolia tree with a 3B pencil. As you can probably tell, my drawing looks quite different from the reference photo. I tend to get carried away and let intuition lead the way, loosely referencing the real scene rather than trying to copy it exactly. After the pencil sketch, I began laying in the color. First, I suggested the blue sky with cobalt blue light, leaving little specks of untouched paper to hint at the white of magnolia flower petals. Then I moved on to the tree trunk. You can see I mixed several colors together to arrive at a soft pale gray to fill in the trunk and branches. If you'd like to mix your own grays, a good place to start is by combining complementary colors, pairs like green with red or purple with yellow. In this sketch, I simply used the colors I already have on my palette. I mixed the green with ruby red and then added touches of ultramarine and cobalt blue to cool the mixture down until it felt close to the real color of the magnolia's bark. Magnolia flowers have such beautiful magenta streaks on the outside of their petals, and I decided to use quinacridone magenta to suggest exactly that. I then mixed a warm brown to block in some of the shapes behind the tree, hinting at the roof of the house that sits just beyond it, and slowly carried a varied green downward to suggest a hedge growing at the base of the trunk. Some of you might recognize this magnolia from a painting session I shared last year, and it continues to inspire me so deeply and always gives me a sense of beauty and hope whenever I walk past it with my pup Eddie. You just saw me use a bit of white gouache here to suggest the fallen magnolia petals. This tree is fascinating to me because its flowers arrive first, and only later do the green leaves follow. The blossoms don't stay on the branches for very long. With the slightest breeze, they drift down and create a soft, beautiful blanket on the ground. Those splatters of yellow-orange you noticed are my way of hinting at the warm centers of the flowers, something I decided to add on a whim as the sketch unfolded. And to me, this magnolia tree, in a way, helps me to cope with constant change, and it feels like it is here to remind us that beauty doesn't need to last forever to be meaningful. It blooms with all its heart, lets its petals go when it's time, and somehow leaves the world looking even more tender and hopeful for a little while. Dear friends, we are now gently moving on to the third thumbnail of this session. Here we'll be painting the light at Pigeon Point State Park and the wide green field blanketed with yellow flowers that always seem to persist at this time of year along the coast. To be honest, I didn't originally plan to paint this scene today. I was going to sketch the white blossoms of a pear tree instead. But this view kept returning to me in my dreams and little daydreams during the day, softly nudging me to come back to it. Sometimes the call is so strong that the only thing I can really do is to follow my heart. Some of you may remember my sketches from Pigeon Point Lighthouse from last year, and you already know how dear this place is to me. I've been visiting here again and again over the years. My son loves playing on the beach nearby, and I love simply standing there watching life go by. The migrating birds, the seals resting on the rocks, and the endless awe-inspiring stretch of the Pacific. We've lived in this part of the world for about 20 years now, and I still never grow tired of this beautiful place. As we paint this little thumbnail together, I hope you can feel a bit of the same feeling of love and hope that this coastline always brings to me. Alright, we have done quite a lot in this little thumbnail already, so let's gently review where we are. I began by loosely sketching this scene in pencil and then moved straight into watercolor. For the sky, I used wet on wet wash with blues, which allowed me to keep some soft whites for distant clouds. Along the horizon, I added a very pale purple mix because the clouds felt a bit denser and heavier closer to the water. Next, I suggested the color of the sea, leaving little streaks of white to hint at the shapes of the waves. When I'm putting down this very first wash, I don't worry too much about the colors mingling or behaving perfectly. This layer is very forgiving, as long as the paints are mostly transparent at this stage and not too heavy. You also saw me struggle a bit to find a brown that felt right for the edge of the cliff. At this point, I try not to stress about it too much. You can always reach for something like burnt sienna and then nudge it warmer or cooler with a touch of blue, red or yellow to describe rocks and cliff faces. For the wide field of yellow flowers, I first laid down a general wash of yellow to set the mood and only later started suggesting the green grasses peeking through the blooms. All the way through the sketch, you can probably see how easy I get carried away, sometimes making small shy marks, and other times using broad sweeping strokes with my calligraphy brush. My process can be quite unpredictable, and there are many moments when I feel uncertain or doubtful. This is where hope, trust, and creating with love really come in and become part of the sketching flow. There is always a moment in a sketch like this where things feel uncertain, where it looks messy, where you are not sure if it's coming together, where you start questioning your choices. I've learned that this is not the time to be harsh with myself. This is the time to soften, to forgive the mistakes, to let the awkward passages be part of the process, and to keep going with love anyway. Because when we sketch with love, when we stay gentle with ourselves, we give the painting room to become what it needs to become. And we also give ourselves permission to try new things without fear. That kind of trust doesn't just stay on the page, it carries into the rest of our lives. And it's something we can share with others too. A quiet reminder that even if we can't see final result yet, we can still keep showing up, one brush stroke at a time, and trust that it will work out one way or the other. And here we are, with all 3 of our little sketches almost finished. They aren't perfect, and they didn't always go exactly as planned, but that's the beauty of it. They are honest, they are full of the colors of the season, and most importantly, they were created with hope and a gentle heart. I hope that wherever you are today and whatever you are facing, you can find a quiet moment to look for the light behind the clouds. Whether you choose to pick up a brush, take a walk outside, or simply sit softly with yourself, remember that there's always beauty waiting to be noticed and always hope waiting to be felt. Thank you so deeply for spending this time with me, for your kind presence, and for sharing in this creative journey with me. I'll see you in the next one. Take good care.